Now, I'm going to take you back many, many years actually, 1966. And most of the gentlemen here will know about 1966 for a certain reason, for those who are into football. But I'm going to take you now to the 12th. This is an incident prior to my incident. I'm going to take you back now to the 12th of August of 1966 and into southwest London. There was a plainclothes police car and it was called Foxtrot 11. It was manned by 3 police officers, the driver, an observer and the operator. And they were round the back of Shepherd's Bush prison where they used to have a patrol now and again because of the attempted escapees. And they saw parked there a standard vanguard. Now in this car were these men. Whitney, who was in fact the driver of the car. Duddy, he was sitting in the back as a passenger. And you may have heard this name. In the front was Harry Roberts. Now, the officers decided to investigate the vehicle because it was stationary. But what they didn't know is that inside the vehicle were 3 handguns and sets of false index plates. At that particular time, gun crime in London was prevalent. There was what we called the jump-up gang, who used to jump up to the counters of the banks. There was the post office, and then the armoured vehicles that were attacked as well. So this was happening fairly regularly. These 3 men were in the car, and round to the driver's side, Whitney's side, a young detective constable, Woolwell, leaned in because it didn't have a tax on, etc., etc. That's a good way to start when you're stopping somebody. And asked for his insurance, etc. And he started to fumble around with various stories that he'd been stopped before with this, that and the other. And he carried on talking to him about this. In the meantime, Sergeant went round to the rear of the vehicle and started looking through the windows. With this, all of a sudden, no reason whatsoever, Roberts leaned across the driver, bang, bang, twice into young Woolwell's head. He immediately fell to the floor. He was dead, there was no doubt about that. With this, the sergeant had seen what had happened. He ran back towards the police car. In the police car was the PC Fox, the driver. It was obviously an automatic because he was sitting in there and he must have had it been in gear for some reason, because as Sergeant Head runs back to the car, he's followed and chased by Duddy and Roberts, who both fire at him. He's shot in the back and he falls to the ground. In the meantime, Roberts then, with Duddy, ran to the police car, through the driver's window and shot Fox. And with that, Fox obviously released the brake, which he must have been on, and the car lurched forward, unfortunately going over the body of Sergeant Head, who was on the floor. But they do say that he was already dead, thank goodness. You can see in the background, it's not quite clear here, but it's August, school holidays, lots of families out on the greens playing games and things. And a young lad, a youth actually, had the presence to hear and see what was going on, and immediately took the registration number of the vehicle they were in. It sped off, obviously, leaving Sergeant Head and the others dead. And you can just see, I think, the police car up here. There it is there, it was a 2000, Type 2000, plainclothes. And the way it went. Obviously, with the index number, lots of inquiries, and within a few hours, Whitney is premises are visited by officers. And he's arrested almost straight away. And his story is what we used to hear regularly. Oh, I bought it off a man in a pub yesterday. I sold it to a man in a pub yesterday. Who, where, why, when? They can't answer these questions. Eventually, he was under question for some time. He sent to the other 2 work. Duddy, as it turned out, had flown up to Scotland to stay with his brother. He was arrested some week later. But the other one, Harry Roberts, you may have heard this, he went on the run. And in fact, he was on the run for some 3 months or so. and he was arrested in a bivouac out in Epping Forest. He didn't have a firearm with him at the time when the police found him, and with that he was arrested as well. As it turns out, strangely enough, it was the same day the trial of the other two was going to start at the Old Bailey, but that was obviously put on wraps until he was charged as well. They were all charged with murder. After a long trial, I'm jumping now to say that they were not life imprisonment. And with that, Duddy later died in I can't remember the exact year, in the 90s. Whitney was murdered. Come back to him. He was murdered, having been involved in various other crimes. The criminal did him. But Harry Roberts was released fairly recently. He was in fact due for release about 8 or 9 years ago. He was befriended by a family. He was on day release, but he tried to blackmail them. Therefore, his chances of parole were reduced, and he was kept in for another, sadly, about 7 years. But he was released, I think it was 5 years ago now. So that's the story. I wanted to bring you into this to let you know exactly what was going on in the 60s in London. And here we are. I'm going to move on now to 1966, but to the 25th of August. On the 25th of August, I was the driver of a police car known as Papa One. And this was at a Lewisham police station in South London. And that was our area, Lewisham, Deptford, Greenwich, Blackheath, various places out as far as Sidcup. And we had a crew of 3 originally, and we were on duty from 7 in the morning, officially until 3 in the afternoon. And we were out on patrol doing the usual things we did. We may have had an accident or various functions we were called to. But coming up to that 25 past 1, we dropped our observer down in Deptford to a small manufacturing unit where they were due to drop the wages, and a man who we wanted was due to collect his wages. So George, our plainclothes observer, was left in there. We then obviously said to George, we won't be far away, give us a shout and we'll come round to pick you up. With that, we drove round the block, not far, and we got, all of a sudden there was a call to say that a young man had phoned in and he'd seen some men putting masks on. And lo and behold, this is in the next street to where we were, so obviously we said we'd take it. We were warned to be a little bit careful because sometimes juveniles phoned in with the wrong information. But we shot round the corner and there was a young lad waving to us. And we stopped and obviously and talked to him. And he gave us the registration number, told us what he'd seen. And with that, all of a sudden, he was up in this window here. His father was a janitor, school holidays. He decided to go in with his dad. He was about 11, this lad. And he looked out and he could see the car here. In fact, this is the car that was later taken back. And you can see it's a Wolsey 610. And this Wolsey 610 was exactly the same model as my police car, 610. The only difference being, as such, this was manual and my police car was automatic. However, as we were talking, we just said we came around the corner, and we're talking, and the car come from our right across. Of course, the lad said, there it is. And lo and behold, obviously they saw us. We could see some of them with the balaclavas up to here, just covering their heads. And a chase started, obviously. Earlier on, you could see there was, where that Wolsey was parked, the streets there were still cobbled. It had been raining slightly, and we only went a few 100 yards before the abandoned vehicle shot right all of a sudden. I followed, did the same. I must say and admit that I nearly lost it a little bit on the cobbles and the speed that was beginning to go. We were in a built-up area of houses, terraced houses, and the foot went down to the bandit's car and we followed. We were at 1 or 2 junctions, small ones, which we went across. They're doing about 35, 40 by this time. However, we came to a very major road, which was Deptford High Street, running from left to right as we approached it. And they made no attempt to stop in any way whatsoever. How they got across, I do not know. I obviously slowed right down and managed to get across. Foot down again, and they're coming from this direction here, from left to right. To the right is New Cross and New Cross Railway Station, for anybody who knows the area. And they put their foot down here, and being 1:30 lunchtime, a lot of the youngest vehicles obviously were at work, and therefore normally these roads would be chock-a-block both sides. So there was a bit of room to manoeuvre. And all of a sudden, we were some 30 yards or so behind. The bandit car turns right and comes down this road here. Obviously we follow. And on the left here, this big tall building is in fact Deptford Police Station. But one's got to go and use your imagination here, because we had none of these talking brooches, telephones, mobiles or anything. The only communications were between my operator and Scotland Yard. Scotland Yard didn't have any direct lines, only telephones to the stations, teleprinters. We had none of this technology that they've all got now. So immediately we thought somebody, my colleague had already been given the details of Scotland Yard and all cars. Someone may have been there, but that wasn't the case. They weren't even probably notified by this time, because it happens quickly. Anyway, when they get down here, and they're almost, they're past this area here, but I'm not. And when I get to that 840 that's parked there, all of a sudden, a guy on the near side leaned out, and you could see the silver pistol. And with that, I ducked obviously, my colleague did as well, we both saw it, and bang! Luckily enough, it missed us, but that's where it ended up. So close, you can see this, there it is there. There it is in the back of that car. We're only just alongside. So that was a near. First we ever knew or thought that we'd be involved in a chase where firearms are going to be used. Obviously my colleague is shouting out through the microphone to Scotland Yard, to all cars. With this, they turned left at the bottom. They're in Deptford here. Lots of side streets. They turned left and they hadn't been gone far. Again, I kept some 30 yards behind. I'm moving up and down. I'm swerving the car as much as I can, because you can see what's happening. And lo and behold, the same thing happens within a very short distance. Another one out the bang. Luckily enough, it didn't strike us. We carried on and ran what I call circles, but in fact would be squares, because there's small streets around there. And we're going round and then back again. And after a short time, believe this, not only was there a man in the front leaning out of the car, but there was a man in the back leaning out with a gun, a shotgun. After a while, he fired the shotgun. Of course, with that, Terry and I both ducked, obviously. By this time, the adrenaline's pouring out of me, and we were lucky. We'll see later on, Terry describes it as they shot the windscreen in, but in fact, it was just the pellets hitting the windscreen. Thank goodness it didn't break the windscreen. And the reason being probably was the distance of 30, 40 yards maybe, and with a short sawn off, the spray and the pellets goes wider, and there's less pressure on its impact. So we carried on, so there's 3 shots, and we went round further on. Lo and behold, another man leans out from the other side of the car this time, not all together, not at this position, and again he fires a pistol. Luckily enough, we didn't feel any strike in the vehicle or the screen. We carried on, and we go around the streets again, and believe this, after a short while, there wasn't one firing at us, there wasn't 2 firing at us, but it was 3. And they all had a go. But again, with zigzagging, up, me and Terry ducking up and down, obviously, and zigzagging, trying to keep, obviously, as far away as possible, without losing them. Again, most of the time we were following them, we were some 20 or 30 yards behind. And those 3, none of them struck us either. We carried on, and we ended up going further afield into the area of Rotherhithe. And there was a one-way street coming out to London. It's the main street down to Surrey Docks areas, Rotherhithe. And there's a tube station there, which is partly above the ground, and it's running, and the main road, that running from London out. The villains got into the road going against the traffic. Now, obviously, I had my siren and blue light on, etc., which probably helped them in a way, because during the period here, some half a mile, maybe a bit further, there were no accidents, cars swerved out of the way. Again, I was lucky because if there was going to be a problem, it wasn't going to be mine. I'm behind them. But imagine this, that a young lad, this came to light later, came out of the tube station, he was about 18 or 19, looks to his left, because he's got to cross the road, where he thinks the traffic's coming from, just about to do this when zoosh, the bandit car comes across, right in front of him, and he later said in his statement, he heard the bang and he could feel the air of the bullet passing his face. So how lucky that man was. This team here were out to do mischief, there's no doubt about that. People say, why did I carry on? You could all ask me and I couldn't really tell you. There's no reason for it. I later had interviews with different things. But I couldn't tell you why. It's just inside you. You may have done the same if you were in the war or if you were somewhere else. It's an instinct. It's something that happens. So we carried on. There wasn't any conversation between Harry and I about stop giving up. We weren't going to give up. And we carried on. And you believe it again, within a short distance, the man leaned out the car again and fired at us. By now, we're down near Rotherhithe police station, which is quite away from there, quite a bit really. But we've gone around lots of squares and I call them circles, but small, narrow streets. I don't think they knew where they were. By this time, I'm out of my area that I had good knowledge of, so I'm following around as well. And during this time, we fired out again on 2 or 3 occasions. Each time you see him lean out, obviously, I'm down as low as I can still see and zigzagging the car. Terry's doing the same. And this carried on for a little while. And all of a sudden, we came to around that area. I didn't know this, but there's a big Creams biscuit factory. And I remember we passed that on 2 occasions where they're going around trying to do this. At the same time, when we were at Rotherhithe, near Rotherhithe police station, we in fact, there's a park just past it. You do a sharp left into Southwark Park, into a road, proper road. Again, there was no police vehicles, there were policemen at that junction and waiting for us. And we went round, followed it, and after about 50, 60 yards, a very sharp bend to the right. And with that, I almost got there, and I don't know if I had a premonition or whatever, but I almost stopped and drove up to the junction, to the right-hand end, looked down the road, and there they were, 2 of them leaning out with their guns, stopped, waiting for us. Luckily enough, they saw that I'd stopped, and so the chase continued. They put their foot down again, went round some small roads, and again fired at us. After all this time, there had been some 14 shots fired at us. In touch wood, nobody, police, civilians or anybody, got injured or were fired at and got shot completely. Nobody, thank goodness. So we carried on, and they came to quite a wide road. I keep doing the wrong one, sorry about this. There it is there. And left to right, they were shooting along this road. It's quite wide actually. And above is the Bricklayers Arms area going into London Bridge. There's the railway. They come steaming down here, screeching at brakes. There was a big Arctic coming across the junction. Crash into the Arctic. And with that, the doors flew open. All four men, not 4, but there were 5 in actual fact. We only ever saw 4 because there was 3 in the back, you didn't know. And they ran out. And with that, 3 of them jogged slightly over in this direction. The other two came this way. That's one of them, the bloke called Matt Vicker. You may have heard of him. He was the man who came towards us. I'd stopped about 30 or 40 yards up the road with the shotgun branded it from his waist. He started to jog slightly with one of the other guys, a guy called Davis. They got within reasonable distance but knew that my foot was on the heavy verse going to go like hell, PP. And with that they gave up and they ran back towards this junction and they went round to the right. Now I came down here then to the junction, but I couldn't get out immediately. I managed to squeeze by, having given it a good thought, and between these posts, and they went over to this road here, the Raymond Road, and they ran down there. Now here's the railway, and as a lot of you probably know, underneath the railway are the arches, and lots of small businesses used to have, use them as containing goods, using goods, storing goods, or whatever. So they started running down this road, and by this time, Terry and I managed to catch them up. And there they are, jogging in front of us, down on the right-hand side, and they kept looking round. Two of them were carrying pistols, you could see them. They made no attempt then to turn around and fire at us, they just kept jogging down, slowly down this road. Oh dear, I'm sorry about this. And eventually, they came to this yard here. They're coming from the right-hand side, jogging along. They look in, start to go in. Well, I didn't know what these buildings were, what it contained, who was in there. So I drove in. I thought they might have been able to get through. I drove in, and immediately I did. The three of them were standing here. And with that, one of them, Gentry, a man I'll never forget, ran straight across, put the gun, the silver pistol, which I've mentioned already, straight through, the window was open, and onto my temple. With that, I was waiting for the bang. But luckily enough, it didn't come, not like the poor three guys 2 weeks earlier who were all killed. In that stage, of course, you've got to bear in mind that Roberts, the third one involved in that first incident, was still on the run. So nobody was aware who these three were as such, or the other two as well. Thank goodness it didn't. And then I suddenly put my hands up like this and tried to push the pistol away because I thought, well, something to distract the bullet. So luckily enough it didn't come. But later on somebody said to me, you know what you did? You put your hands in the shape of a cross. I'm not a religious man, but I believe, again, there was somebody else looking after me up there. With this, he ordered me out the car, across the road. Terry, he ordered him out, he ran down the road. He was going to go and get a lorry and put across. The road wasn't terribly wide. Get a lorry to stop him going down that way. So I had to walk across the road with my hands up. He jumped in. He managed to find reverse. It was an automatic. Backed it round, and it came almost alongside me, a little bit shorter. And the pistol, the silver pistol was there, I'll never forget, was there pointing at me. And you could hear and see him juggling his arm around, trying to remove it. A lot of you know with all these different vehicles you use. Often the reverse is an automatic then. The reverse, etc., is not always in the same place. And he was trying to find drive. He'd been in reverse, he was trying to get drive. And every time he couldn't, he was looking around again. And after a while, he did in fact manage to get it, and he looked away. And with that, I jumped and grabbed hold of the gun hand with a like a vice. You wouldn't realise how strong you are. There was no way he was going to use that. My hand was on it like a vice. The other hand was on the door sill. With that, he put his foot down. And we the speed started to increase, obviously. Started going down the road, and you believe, and this is true, it's all recorded, there was a bang! And I thought, he hasn't shot that, I've got it. A tire blew. A forensic examination later proved there was no bullets, no ammunition in that tire whatsoever. Was there somebody? Don't know. So we carried on. And with the bang, it obviously threw the vehicle because of the tyre. And there we are, we went down the road. You can see these cars here. There's my police car, Papa 1, the 610, 610. Here. We come down here, and because it pushed the car over that side, and you've got to bear in mind I'm on that side as well. Thank goodness, instead of going straight down there because of the bang and the tyre going, it went at an angle. And that's what's happened here. You can see he pushed that one, he's pushed that one, and he went into a truck that was parked there. Just prior to this, going in there, I was thrown off near this tree. With that, the door opened, the driver's door, and out he got. I started to get up again actually, and got near the door. He didn't know I was there, I think, but he threw the door open and I got knocked to the ground again actually. And he ran into the yard. There. He ran into this yard, and it's exactly the same as it was. The metal shutter was down. There's all these pipe chips to build his yard. He ran in, and he's got in because he hadn't known where to go. By this time, Terry's with me, we're both in the doorway. It's a bit longer than you think, that's just as I'll show you the next shot in a minute. And with that, he stood there, and in no uncertain terms, language-wise, he told us to move. For some reason, we don't know why, because neither Terry nor I believe we moved. We were a yard apart, maybe. Bang! There's another one, and it went across the road into that building there. Now you can see what's happened later, because all these children, again, there's a big green here, and parents, they were all out playing. Another shot gone, nobody injured, thank goodness, nobody. But you can see the damage to my poor old Papa 1 there. And with that, all hell let loose. You can imagine. I rushed him because there was a click, click, click. He'd run out of bullets. I rushed him and grabbed his gun hand. I wasn't going to let that go again. I didn't have any option last time. And I got it, and I managed to get it off him. At that time, Terry was striking him with his truncheon. I, in fact, started striking him across the head with his own gun. And I did it so hard that I broke the butt, which was Bakelite. And as he was going down to the ground, he had a pair of these overalls on with a diamond here where you could put things. He was trying to get out an automatic pistol, but he didn't get a chance to do so. With that, he more or less went unconscious. At the same time, there was words, all of a sudden, from a man who in fact was a yard man. And he said, he was standing there, and he had one of these 12-inch tench pipes in his hand. He'd seen what was going on, and he said, if he drops it, pal, if he does anything, pal, I'll drop this on him. That shows you how the public were looking after us in those days. And then, a short while later, as he was down on the ground, Terry and I were on top of him. It was the first time that we saw assistance arrive. And thank goodness they did by that, because we were completely shattered and worn out. Anything, you name it, that's how we were. I think I said this, we hugged each other, Terry and I. Thank things for being there, and that we were still there. And with that, in the meantime, the other two, the vicar and the other was went a different way, and one of them was arrested, but we didn't know his name was Vicar at that time, but Vicar went up onto the railway. And bear in mind, this is 2 o'clock time, start of the rush hour, lots of traffic going through there on Bricklayers Arms. It's the main line out of London Bridge. There's the car. There's Gentry, the villain that I struck. There's myself having a wee bit of TLC from, I can't remember who. I had broken fingers and a damaged arm, thank goodness, nothing else. And with that, we were taken to hospital. In the meantime, this is one of the biggest manhunts there was in South London. The whole of the electric line from coming out of London Bridge was switched off. because officers were switching because the vicar had in fact gone along here. There you see officers, plainclothes, guns, inspector. Now why there were so many with plainclothes guns? Because, as I said, nobody knew that this wasn't Roberts, who was wanted for the other murders at that stage. So there were lots and lots of armed police around. There they are searching the lorries that were coming out, and there's another officer plainclothes with a gun. It was a horrendous searching time, but unfortunately they did get the connect. There's some more, searching all the trucks. It was quite a big day for London. That's just I won't show you that really. This is what happened later. You can see the injuries I had. Terry, luckily enough, didn't. But in between times, you saw us come to the hospital. I went, and Terry came as well in the same, another ambulance. Some uniformed lads went in with gentry with 1 week knocked unconscious, and we followed in another one. And luckily enough, there were a couple of police motorcycles and another police car we found had been damaged because they'd been involved in accidents trying to get to us. It's one of those things, nobody can really explain why. This particular time, nobody could get up with us, but I'll explain to you, the only system was through Scotland Yard, basically. And also, the communications apart, as I said, worked. And also, it was nearly changeover time, which means one crew's going in, the others just in the car to come back out. However, we, luckily enough, none of those officers were injured as well. And this chase went on for some 15 minutes because my watch broke. And we were taken to Guy's Hospital. At Guy's Hospital, within a very short time, I was wondering about my wife, because we had the press there within minutes, and I was worried about her finding out. She was at work. She worked in Bromley Magistrates Court as a clerk, and I was trying to get her, and then thought, no, I'll ring mother-in-law who lived near us as well. She was there. Luckily enough, I was able to tell her, whatever you see, whatever you hear, I'll fight. And that was it. But the trouble was, you see, one of these clerks at the court, which was next to the police station, heard what was going on. And so I said to Marie, "Is Tony on Papa One today?" And she said, "Yeah." They left it like that, but Marie chased her. So you can imagine how she fell apart when she was told what was going on. She tried to get us. They found all lines of Townbridge Police Station, Lewisham Police Station, by the yard. Nobody could really tell her what was going on. I tried, eventually, and managed to get her, thank goodness. And you can imagine how we got off in the conversation. With that, obviously, I stayed, and her father picked her up and took Marie home. Coming on from there, we had a press interview, and then this happened. Pictures and stuff. Going on from there, here we are. I'll show you this now. That's what you've been waiting to see. That's all you've been waiting to see. I'm on Flores, I read the story, and that's what you wanted to see. But there it is. There she is. I can tell you, CKO 350C, I can't even see it, but I'll tell you, I'll never forget that one. And there she is with the damage. And out of all this, out of this forensic examination, there you are, one pellet is found in the radiator group. Three shotguns and 12 or 13 bullets. And that's the only thing that was found there. We move on now. Now there's the bandit's car, exactly the same as you can see, and there's the damage there. Exactly the same. We had two of the other ones, my one, at the station, and used to alternate shifts. The late would take one out, and then the early turn. So it didn't get too much knowledge on it all at once. This was manual. Should have had the upper hand, really, because as you know, within a gearbox you can slow things down and speed things up a lot quicker than you can with an automatic. But there we are. We were so fortunate. Now, there are some horrendous moments during the chase. This is the exact copy from the recording at Scotland Yard. He's finally getting through the windscreen. I told you what Terry's feelings there were. Where we are. We want someone in a car with some guns on board, someone's going to get shot. He's just shut our windscreen in. For Christ's sake, mind, there you're going to get him. Well, again, that was Terry, meaning the pellets had struck the windscreen. You can imagine the pressure we were under at that particular time. Come on, someone, can't you give us a hand? This is bloody hungry. How he could be so liberal with his words, I just don't know. He stopped. This is the Southwark Park I was talking about. Get someone with guns down here, for God's sake. We're still screaming out for help. Unfortunately, carried on, he stopped. They're all running now, shotgun. This is where they crashed, and McVicker came towards us with the shotgun. They're on foot, we're now following. They've got guns. I said to you, two of them were jogging along the road with the pistols. And then there's obviously silence because the car was taken off us. This is the driver, ambulance please. One man, well that wasn't correct. But that's how it was, and that's just some of the horrendous moments from that chase. It went on for a quarter of an hour, as I said to you. It was all recorded at the yard. So there we are, and I'll go on a little bit. Obviously, we had two in custody because the one who was with Mac Vicker was arrested. We had Gentry, the other one. And then later, within 4 weeks it was, I think, McVicker was in fact arrested, having committed another armed robbery. Within another 2 weeks after that, Cooper, who was in fact the driver, he was arrested when he went to pick his children up from school. Now, some say, well, there's only 4. It's right. There were 5. And often you people may know and make deductions in some cases that there was somebody giving information. This wasn't the case. This was completely out of the blue. And you know, I still see the head of the investigation on every 2 or 3 months for a meal, and he still says they never knew who the 5th man was. Nobody ever told them the name. Anyway, it went to court, to the Old Bailey, number 1 court, between the Lord Chief Justice. The trial went on for some 2 weeks or more. They all pleaded not guilty. The most amusing story, shall I say, from a defence point of view, was Gentry, the man with the silver gun. He said that he was working, doing gardening, that's why he had the overalls on, in the East End, and all of a sudden this car arrives with the others in who he knew. He owed them money. They told him, right, you're coming with us. They threw me in the car, and all of a sudden I'm involved in a robbery. I didn't use any of those guns. No, it wasn't me. But there he is. He's got a silver pistol in his hand. It fired so many times. He's got another one in his pocket, which was an automatic. Thank goodness, in actual fact, the automatic didn't have any bullets left. That had been fired at us and ejected. So that was it. And at the trial, the Lord Chief Justice gave 2 of them 17 years and 2 of the others 15 years. And when the trial finished, Terry and I were called forward and asked to stand before his lordship. And he commended us and said that we'd done a wonderful job looking after the public, and that he would recommend it went to higher places. We didn't realise what he meant when he said that, because the higher place for us was normally a commendation from the commissioner, which we used to get for special occasions, so it was left. This was in the trial was in February, and with that, it was, we had a commissioner's commendation, but then this arose. All of a sudden, there's a knock on the door at home with express delivery, and my wife had answered it. I wasn't there. She opened it. It was from number 10, and she phoned me up and told me what I'd been awarded, the George Cross. This was in May of 1967, and there's the incident there, all in here. There we are. That came later, to go to Buckingham Palace on the 11th of July to to receive the award. So Terry and I went, Marie and my 2 children, Terry and his 2 children, and it's a wonderful occasion because you're in the big area, big room there, and the days is set up where the Queen will be, and there's like you're sitting now, chairs, gangway chairs, and Marie sat there with my 2, Terry's wife sat there, so we're right in the front, and we're put in this other private room. And that particular day there's 161 investitures, and Terry and I were number 1 and then number 2. It's a good feeling because you're in there with lords, ladies, admirals, everybody, you name them, and you're called out and you troops out before them all. It's a wonderful feeling actually, and that was great. And afterwards you go around and sit around the back. Now that's fine because my little one was 3 years old, Rachel, and my son was 5, and they sat there, fidgeting. They were near a very short distance from the Queen, and she kept smiling. And the 161st investiture was to a yeoman bed hanger. Now, he was a man who come in with grey hair, a grey beard, pantaloons, a red top, black shoes, white stockings, and he marches across the days, and my little girl calls out, "There's Father Christmas." And with that, the Queen more or less erupted, and so did my wife. And afterwards, she came across to Marie, and they had a chat. And that was our wonderful day. Later, Marie and I were taken to the RAF Club in Piccadilly, where the Victoria Cross and George Cross Association met. Prior to this, we had a letter from them inviting us to a special luncheon they were giving, and there we went and met a dozen or so Victoria Cross and George Cross holders. In fact, strangely enough, hardly any of them are with us now because, bear in mind, I'm going back to 1967. But it was wonderful, and there's 2 there you may remember. You may remember Odette, who had her toenails ripped out by the Germans when she was in the French resistance. And the other one would be Admiral Place, who commanded the 3 submarines, miniature submarines that attacked the Tirpitz over in Norway. He stayed with us for quite a long while. So did Odette, actually. I was lucky to know them. So it was a wonderful occasion, and that resulted in me being a member of the association. We have reunions every 2 years, give or take. They come from all over the world. On my first reunion in 1968, there were 198. Have I got that on here? Oh, there's Terry. Oh no, that's another one. There's Terry and I at the Palace. But there were 198 at the first reunion I went to. There were some 400 alive throughout the world, and it was an association set up by Sir Jackie Smythe, who was a VC and also a military captain, and a very good friend of Churchill's. And between them, they formed this association. Churchill was the first president. And it was brought into by warrant that every holder would be brought from wherever they lived throughout the world with 2 guests to attend the reunions, all paid for. And that still goes on now. But the only thing now is there's only 9 VCs and 18 GCs throughout the world. But we still meet, and we had a wonderful meeting last year. We've got another one coming up next year. So there we are, and that's just a comic. I don't know why they did. This was done a year or so afterwards. We weren't even asked about it, but you can see the cars were all wrong. There's a Jag here. And various incidents went on there. And you can't really see that, but there's... Terry got the George Medal, in actual fact. Mainly because of what I did was far and beyond what he had to do. Not decrying him at all. He was there with me all the time. But that's how it worked out. Now, I'm going to go on a little bit more now. In fact, I'll move on from there to show you this. I'm going back now So you can see, this is what you're interested in. Here's the villain's car. This was it, but taken back at a later date and photographed, and the boy was looking out that window. That's the villain's car. As I say, I've shown it to you once, but I've shown it again. And there's mine, first time in the crash. And the next one is the crash itself. Just showing you again so you get an idea. Very robust, really. They were fairly robust vehicles, I felt. And there's the crash on the other side. There it is again, as you've seen. A lot more damage then than they had when they went into the truck, actually. There you are. And there you go, ladies and gents. On to this one. Now, this is the Ashcroft Gallery at the Imperial War Museum. My medals, in actual fact, are in this museum. These are replicas that my wife bought for me, because other than that, you had to keep going to the Imperial War Museum to get them out to go to functions. So she bought me a set, which was lovely. Now, it's so interactive there. He donated £5 million, did Lord Ashcroft, to have this 5th floor built. These are all interactive. There's 7 different lanes. You can see them there. They all come under different start. There's like, all to do with the sacrifice, leadership, various things, and the categories then, and then they put what they thought the VCs and GCs in those categories. And we go on from there. And then there's mine. I'm so lucky. Now, I've got a feeling that Taff, if I remember rightly, is involved in partly of the coming of this car, the making of it.
Well, they contacted Taff through his military associations, because he works as a historian, as most people know. And we then loaned the car that was measured up for the model.
And this model is my Papa One. You can't see it here, but the original damage is all shown there in scale and everything. And the light will work if you push a button further down. And if you pick up the handset, you'll hear me talking similar to what I've said today, just a bit. And there's my medals, there's only 4 there, and an early picture of myself. Again, interactive, you can touch screens and all these things come up. And I'm given to understand that that model cost into the 4 figures to have it done. So I was so proud. And there it is. So there you are, ladies and gents. That's the story of my Papa One, 610, and how it was so good to me as such. And that was my life at that particular time. Thank you very much.